She thought she could escape her past. But the price of redemption may be higher than she ever imagined. Ava's choices have led her down a dark path, one filled with regret, lies, and betrayal. Now, as the weight of her decisions crushes her heart, a mysterious force offers her a chance to make things right. But at what cost? Once upon a time, in a small, peaceful town, nestled deep in the southern countryside of the United States, there was a young girl named Ava. This town was surrounded by fields of pure white cotton, stretching as far as the eye could see. Here, the golden sunlight each morning would blanket the small houses with a warm embrace, while the little river winding around the town whispered ancient stories like an old friend. In this simple setting, Ava grew up as her family's pride and the shining light of the town. Ava's father, Mr. William, was a hard-working cotton farmer. Every day he toiled in the fields, his rough hands working tirelessly to ensure a bountiful harvest. He often said, "Cotton is the soul of this town, and it's also the way I provide you with a life, Ava." Even though the hot summer days would leave sweat streaming down his sun-weathered face, Mr. William never stopped striving. For him, family was the most precious thing, and he was willing to do anything to keep a smile on his wife and daughter's faces. Ava's mother, Mrs. Clara, was a resourceful and creative woman. She had skilled hands, turning scraps of fabric, small bows, or even old buttons into beautiful handmade items. Every day, she would take them to the market, always with a gentle smile as she invited customers to buy. "Each of these small items," Mrs. Clara would say, "carries a little love from a mother for our family." Every penny she earned was used to buy food, patch up old clothes, or sometimes just to buy a new pencil for Ava. Ava's family was not wealthy. Their small wooden house sat on the edge of the town, humble yet cozy, surrounded by a small garden where her mother grew vegetables and a few wildflowers. Yet Ava never felt that she was lacking. In her heart, the love and care of her parents were the most valuable treasures. Every evening, the whole family would sit around the small wooden table, the dim oil lamp casting a warm glow in the room. The simple meal of bread and a bit of greens was always filled with laughter. Ava was not only beautiful, but she also had a special light that shone from her sparkling eyes and radiant smile. When she smiled, the whole town seemed to brighten up. "Look at Ava," the older folks in the town often said. "She's like a ray of sunshine on a rainy day." Despite living in poverty, Ava always knew how to make everything around her feel joyful and warm. Every morning, Ava would wake up as the first rays of the sun peeked over the cotton fields. She helped her mother water the garden, prepared breakfast, and then hurriedly grabbed her old school bag to head to school. The road to school was long, crossing dirt roads and rows of old oak trees, but for Ava, it was not a dull journey. She loved those cool mornings, the sounds of birds singing in the forest, and the gentle breeze brushing through her shiny black hair. At school, Ava was the top student. She always listened attentively to the lessons, diligently did her homework, and never stopped asking interesting questions. Every week, when she received praise from the principal, Ava's eyes would light up with pride. "Ava, you are the pride of this school," the principal would often say, handing her a small gift like a new pencil or a notebook. Ava cherished those little gifts like treasures, bringing them home to show her parents, then carefully placing them on a small shelf in her room. Whenever Ava walked through the town, she would often stop to greet the local people. She helped Mrs. Johnson, the elderly neighbour, carry heavy baskets of goods from the market to her house. She played simple games like jump rope or soccer with the children in the town using a worn-out ball. Ava was loved not only for her intelligence and beauty, but also for her kindness and compassionate heart. The villagers often said, "Ava is our hope. One day, she will do great things." These compliments didn't make Ava arrogant. On the contrary, they made her even more determined to study hard and work diligently, so she would not disappoint everyone's expectations. On peaceful evenings, Ava would often sit by the small window, gazing at the silver moonlight illuminating the vast cotton fields. She dreamed of a future where she could bring better things to her family. where her parents no longer had to toil on the fields or at the market. One day, she thought to herself, I'll take my parents to a beautiful place where they can rest and live happily. Ava's life, though simple, was full of sweet and meaningful moments. She was the pride not only of her family but also of the whole little town. But who could have known that ahead of her was a journey full of storms where great challenges would force her to face herself and make decisions that would change her life forever? Stay tuned for more exciting episodes of this story on African Tales Best. Ava was the pride of the village school. Not only was she intelligent and diligent, but she also exuded a rare determination. In class, she always sat in the front row, listening intently to the lessons, her bright eyes seeming to absorb every word the teacher said. Ava's test scores were always the highest, and every week, when the teacher handed her a small reward, a shiny new pencil or a tiny notebook with crisp white pages, Ava's smile would light up. It wasn't just the joy of a young girl, but the deep pride of knowing that she was making her family and the whole school proud. But Ava's life began to change on a crisp, early autumn morning when she met Harper, a new girl who had moved to town from a wealthy family. Harper was completely different from the other girls her age. She always appeared in clothes so beautiful that anyone who saw her couldn't help but stare. The bright red dress Harper wore on her first day at school made all the girls in the class whisper with envy, while the boys couldn't take their eyes off her. But what caught Ava's attention the most was the pair of shoes Harper wore. Shiny black shoes with a small, cute bow on the toe. Ava had never seen anything so luxurious. Harper quickly became the center of attention. She told fascinating stories about life in the big city, where her family lived in a grand house with shiny glass doors and a garden full of flowers. "We even have a swimming pool," Harper said, her bright green eyes sparkling like jewels. Ava listened quietly, her heart both admiring and feeling a little distant. She had never thought about a life outside of this small village, and Harper's stories made Ava realize just how vast and lavish the world beyond was. One day, Ava went to school with a rumbling stomach. Her family had run out of food, and her mother had skipped breakfast to save the last bit of bread for her father to take out to the fields. Ava didn't want to trouble her parents, so she hurriedly drank a glass of water before leaving the house. But by mid-morning, hunger made it impossible for her to focus on the lessons. Every time her classmates took out food, the smell tortured her. In that moment, Harper walked over to Ava's desk. "Ava, I've got something for you," Harper said, her voice as sweet as honey. She handed Ava a sandwich, carefully wrapped in shiny foil. Ava's eyes widened in surprise. "Harper, why are you doing this?" Harper just smiled, setting the sandwich down. "I made it just for you. What are friends for?" Ava took the sandwich with trembling hands. She had never received a gift like this from a friend. When she opened the foil, the smell of toasted bread and smoky bacon was irresistible. "Thank you so much, Harper," Ava said, her voice choked with emotion. In that moment, Ava realized that Harper was not just a glamorous city girl, but a true friend. From that day on, Ava and Harper quickly became best friends. Harper often invited Ava over to her house, where Ava would admire the items she had only seen in photo albums: sparkling silver combs, soft silk dresses, and beautifully embroidered cushions. Every time Ava visited Harper's house, it felt like stepping into another world, a world she had never dared to dream of. With her glamorous appearance and confidence, Harper seemed like the perfect friend. She always spoke kind words, encouraging Ava to work harder in school. "Ava, you're amazing. One day you'll leave this village and do wonderful things," Harper often said. But not everyone trusted Harper. The other girls in class would whisper among themselves, "Harper isn't trustworthy, Ava should be careful." Ava heard these words but paid them no mind. To her, Harper had opened the door to a new world, a world where everything seemed bright and full of promise. As time went on, Ava spent more and more time with Harper. They would often take walks around the village after school, Harper always carrying a small, cute umbrella to shield her from the sun, while Ava simply wore her old straw hat. They laughed and shared secrets only best friends could know. Harper spoke of her big dreams, becoming a famous fashion designer, living in an apartment in New York and traveling the world. Ava, though she didn't dare dream as far as Harper, began to imagine a better future. But despite the new things Harper brought into Ava's life, their friendship also raised questions Ava couldn't answer. Why did Harper always have such expensive things? How could a teenage girl afford silk dresses or shiny high-heeled shoes? Harper never gave a clear explanation, only smiling and changing the subject whenever Ava asked. This made Ava both curious and uneasy, feeling that something wasn't quite right. The friendship between Ava and Harper marked a turning point in Ava's life. It not only gave her a new friend, but also opened doors to choices and challenges she had never considered. But along with that came secrets and changes Ava hadn't anticipated. Little did she know, Harper's appearance would not only bring joy, but also mark the beginning of events that would change her life forever. On a vibrant sunset afternoon, as the last rays of daylight filtered through the gaps in the leaves, Ava and Harper sat by a large, ancient tree next to a small stream at the edge of the village. The sound of the trickling water created a peaceful atmosphere, but Ava's mind was filled with unanswered questions. In her mind, Harper appeared every day with new exotic items, from a shiny pearl necklace to an intricately embroidered dress, which piqued Ava's curiosity. Ava bit her lip, hesitating for a long while before speaking. "Harper, I really want to know. How did you get all these beautiful things, the dresses, those sparkling high heels? I've never seen anyone in this village with anything like them." Harper was fiddling with a small silver bracelet on her wrist, her gaze briefly showing hesitation. She glanced at Ava and then turned her head, as if to ensure no one was listening. The atmosphere suddenly grew tense, and Ava felt her heart racing in her chest. Finally, Harper leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I know a rich man. He really likes me. And he gives me money, gifts, everything. In exchange, I make him happy." The answer hit Ava like a thunderbolt. Her eyes widened, filled with confusion. "Happy?" Ava repeated, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "What do you mean? How could you get involved in something like that?" Harper let out a soft laugh, a smile that seemed half proud, half hiding something unsettling. "Ava, it's not as complicated as you think. He's rich, lonely, and he needs someone to make him feel loved. In exchange, I get the things I want, that's all." A mix of emotions surged inside Ava. She looked at Harper, her glamorous, confident friend, but now she seemed like a painting with the shiny paint peeled off. "Harper," Ava sighed, trying to keep calm. "But what if something happens, like, getting pregnant, for example?" Harper burst into a loud, carefree laugh, as though Ava had just told a silly joke. "Pregnant?" Harper repeated, stressing each word. "Ava, you're so cute. I know how to handle everything. Don't worry, I'll never let that happen." But Ava didn't find her words reassuring. Her heart felt heavy and a vague sense of worry began creeping into her mind. "But don't you fear? Fear of getting caught? What will people say about you? Harper, don't you think this could cost you everything?" Harper narrowed her eyes, her lips curling into a half smile. "Ava, you're so naive. Our whole lives we have to fight for what we want. Do you think those beautiful dresses and jewelry just appear out of nowhere? Do you think that just studying hard and being diligent is enough to change your life? No, Ava. Sometimes we have to seize opportunities, even if they seem imperfect." Ava fell silent. Harper's words were like sharp blades cutting into her heart, leaving painful marks that were hard to notice immediately. She looked at Harper, the friend she had once admired, now seeming like a stranger. Maybe Harper was right. Life wasn't as simple as Ava had always believed. But at the same time, something deep inside Ava made her unable to agree with Harper's cold, pragmatic view of the world. Harper placed a hand on Ava's shoulder, her bright eyes glimmering as if to reassure her. "Ava, I'm not asking you to be like me. I just want to say that this world isn't fair. But if you're smart, you can turn that unfairness into your advantage." Ava nodded, But inside, 1,000 unanswered questions still weighed on her heart. She knew that Harper had chosen her own path, but would that path truly lead to happiness? Ava didn't know, and that uncertainty made her feel more unsettled than ever. As the sunset faded and nightfall descended, Ava and Harper stood up and left the old tree behind. On the way back home, Ava could clearly feel an invisible distance growing between her and Harper. Harper's answer had changed the way Ava viewed her best friend, and more than that, it made Ava begin to question the path she herself would choose these. Inni asadi our future. On a fresh morning, with dewdrops still clinging to the green sugarcane leaves, Ava walked along the red dirt road leading to Harper's house. The gentle breeze brushed past, carrying the sweet fragrance of the vast sugarcane fields surrounding the village. The soft, early sunlight bathed Ava's face, making her cheeks glow pink in the cool morning air. She felt light-hearted, though her mind was still burdened with unresolved thoughts from recent conversations with Harper. In that moment, a warm voice called out from behind. "Ava, wait a minute!" She turned around and saw Nathan, a young man with warm brown eyes and a bright smile waving at her. Nathan worked as a sugarcane harvester, known throughout the village for his diligence and skill. People often said Nathan's sugarcane was sweeter than anyone else's, because he not only planted, but also cared for each stalk as if it were part of his own family. Nathan walked closer, holding a small box in his hand. He seemed a bit shy as he handed it to Ava, his eyes lighting up with a hint of bashfulness. "This day is for you," he said, his voice low but sincere. Ava opened the box, revealing a pair of sparkling silver earrings, reflecting the sunlight like morning dew. Ava stared at the gift, her eyes wide in surprise. "Nathan, why are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. Nathan shrugged, his smile softening. "I thought they would suit you. You always bring light wherever you go. I just wanted to give you something to remind you how special you are." Ava's cheeks flushed with warmth, and her heart raced as she spoke her thanks. For the first time in her life, Ava felt a strange, comforting warmth coming from her heart. The earrings weren't just a gift, they were a symbol of the affection Nathan had for her, a kind of affection Ava never thought she would receive. From that day forward, Ava and Nathan spent more and more time together. Whether it was a radiant morning or an evening when the sun set behind the sugarcane fields, they would walk together by the Mississippi River, where the clear water mirrored the deep red sunset. Nathan often shared his dreams with Ava. One day, he wanted to open the largest sugarcane farm in the region, with not only lush sugarcane fields, but also factories to produce sugar, creating jobs for the whole village. "I want to do something to improve life for everyone here," Nathan said, his eyes gleaming with passion. Ava listened with admiration and empathy. She shared her own dream with Nathan. One day she would have enough money so her parents wouldn't have to work so hard anymore, and she wanted to learn more so she could help her family in the best way possible. They talked non-stop, their laughter blending with the sounds of the wind and the gentle flow of the river. Gradually, their feelings for each other deepened. Nathan, with his sincerity and warmth, had become someone Ava felt she could trust completely. He always listened to her, never judging, never imposing, and that made Ava feel more cherished than ever before. But then, on an evening when the sunset cast a golden-red glow over the river, Ava and Nathan could no longer hold back their emotions. Amid their heartfelt conversations, their hands accidentally touched, and soon after, a gentle yet intense kiss followed. That kiss was like a small flame, quickly spreading in their hearts, burning down every barrier between them. They didn't know that this moment would change their lives forever. A few weeks later, Ava began to notice unusual changes in her body. She felt tired, and the morning nausea made it impossible for her to deny the growing signs. Ava, in her confusion and fear, began to piece events together, and an undeniable truth emerged in her mind. She was pregnant. The news hit Ava like a heavy stone on her shoulders. She had never prepared herself for this. Fear, anxiety, and a touch of guilt crept into her heart. Ava didn't know what to do next. She couldn't bring herself to tell Nathan, couldn't share it with Harper, and certainly couldn't tell her parents. Her thoughts spun endlessly, each time pulling her deeper into a vortex of fear. But Ava knew she couldn't run away forever. She had to face this reality, no matter how cruel it seemed. She had to make decisions that would not only shape her life, but also the life of the tiny being she was carrying. With tears welling in her eyes, Ava sat by the Mississippi River, where she and Nathan had once shared moments of happiness. Her heart felt heavy, but deep inside, Ava knew this was just the beginning of a challenging journey she would have to face. Ava sat on the steps of her house, her hands tightly clutching the silk scarf Nathan had given her on a sunlit afternoon by the Mississippi River. Inside her heart, emotions tangled like a bundle of sharp thorns, each painful prick gnawing at her soul. After many sleepless nights, she finally decided she had to tell Nathan. He deserved to know the truth, and she hoped, just a little, that he would understand and face this with her. When Ava arrived at Nathan's sugarcane farm, she saw him standing among the towering stalks of cane, sweat streaming down his sun-kissed face. Under the harsh sun, Nathan's figure still appeared strong and full of life, just like the first time she had met him. But this time, Ava didn't feel the warmth or happiness she once did when she saw him. She walked up to him, her voice trembling as she called his name. "Nathan, I need to talk to you." Nathan stopped his work and turned to look at Ava with a look of mild curiosity. He wiped the sweat from his brow and walked toward her, his brows slightly furrowed as he noticed the seriousness on her face. "What's going on, Ava?" he asked, his voice deep but filled with caution. Ava took a deep breath, feeling as though the weight of the entire world was pressing down on her chest. She looked up at Nathan, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Her voice was gentle but clear. "Nathan, I'm pregnant. The baby is yours." For a moment, everything seemed to stop. The sound of the wind rustling through the sugarcane, the distant chirping of birds, all of it faded, leaving only a terrifying silence between the two of them. Nathan stared at Ava, his eyes darkening, no longer holding the warmth she once adored. After a moment, he let out a cold, bitter laugh. "That's not my child," Nathan said, his voice like a sharp blade slicing through Ava's heart. "You're mistaken, Ava. I'm not involved in this." Ava couldn't believe what she had just heard. She shook her head, trying to stay calm, but her voice still shook with emotion. "Nathan, you know this is the truth. I'm not lying to you." But Nathan only shook his head and stepped back, as though she were a stranger. "I don't want to be involved in this, Ava," he said, his voice cold and final. "You'll have to handle it yourself." Without waiting for Ava to say another word, Nathan turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, her feet frozen to the ground. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed, so painfully that she could hardly breathe. She watched Nathan's figure disappear among the towering sugarcane stalks, tears running down her cheeks, blending with the cold sweat on her forehead. Ava didn't know how long she had stood there. When her legs finally moved again, it felt as though she was walking through a dark, uncertain dream. She didn't know what to do, didn't know where to turn for help. But then, in her desperation, a name appeared in her mind, Mrs. Clara, the most renowned midwife in the area. Mrs. Clara was known not only for her skill, but also for her kindness and wisdom. If anyone could help her, it had to be Mrs. Clara. Ava made her way to Mrs. Clara's small house on the edge of the village, where wildflowers grew thick around the entrance. The sky darkened, signaling the approach of a storm, but Ava paid it no mind. She knocked on the door, and a moment later, Mrs. Clara, with her silver hair and wise, sparkling eyes, opened it. "Come in, my dear," she said, her voice warm, like a blanket on a cold winter night. She led Ava inside, where they sat in a sturdy old wooden chair. "Now, tell me what's happened." Ava tried to stay composed, but the moment the first words left her lips, tears streamed down her face. She told Mrs. Clara everything, about her love for Nathan, the moment they couldn't control their emotions, and the cruel rejection when Nathan found out she was pregnant. Mrs. Clara sat quietly, her wrinkled hands gently clasped in her lap. When Ava finished speaking, Mrs. Clara nodded, her eyes filled with a touch of sadness, but no judgment. "Ava, my dear," she said, her voice soft yet firm. "This child is part of you. It is a life that you carry, and no matter how difficult it is, you must face this reality." Ava lowered her head, her voice choked. "But I don't know what to do. I can't raise this child alone. I'm afraid I'm not strong enough." Mrs. Clara sighed, then spoke slowly. "My dear, it's too late to rid yourself of this child without endangering your life. But if you don't want to keep it, I must tell you the truth. There are people who will pay a great deal of money for a healthy child." Her words hit Ava like a bolt of lightning. She looked up at Mrs. Clara, her eyes filled with shock and confusion. "Sell the baby?" she whispered, her voice so soft it was almost inaudible. Mrs. Clara nodded, her gaze stern but still full of compassion. "I know this is hard to accept, but if you truly cannot keep the child, that may be the only way for you to continue with your life. You will have to think carefully, Ava. This decision is not easy, but it is yours to make." Ava left Mrs. Clara's house with a heavy heart. The rain began to fall, each cold drop sinking deep into her soul. Mrs. Clara's words echoed in her mind, creating a whirlwind of emotions, pain, fear, and despair. Ava couldn't stop thinking about the child growing inside her and the road ahead. Could she do what Mrs. Clara suggested? Would she have the courage to make a decision that would change her life and the life of the tiny being she was carrying? Ava didn't know, and that question would follow her through the days to come, like a ghost that would never disappear. Ava sat alone in her small, dimly lit room, the light from the oil lamp on the table barely illuminating her trembling hands. In her mind, Mrs. Clara's words echoed clearly. "If you don't want to keep the child, there are people willing to pay a lot of money for a healthy baby." Those words burned like a dim flame in the dark night of despair. At first, the thought of selling her child left Ava stunned. She couldn't imagine parting with the baby she had carried for 9 months. It wasn't just a tiny life, it was a part of her. But the harsh reality kept reminding her of her circumstances. How could she care for a child when she herself was struggling to survive? How could she envision a future for the baby when each day felt like a battle just to overcome hunger and judgment? In the nights that followed, Ava tossed and turned, unable to sleep. She struggled within herself, her heart torn between motherhood and the cold, pragmatic truth life forced upon her. Some nights, she would hold her belly, feeling the faint kicks of the baby, tears soaking her pillow. Other nights, she would stare up at the ceiling, imagining the bag of gold Mrs. Clara had spoken of, her heart filled with both guilt and hope. Could that money help her escape her current situation? Could it be the key to starting over? Time didn't wait for anyone, and eventually, Ava made her decision. In that moment, it felt like her soul was being torn in two, one half weighed down by pain, while the other was driven by the will to survive. She told Mrs. Clara, "I'll do it. I'll give the baby away." Her words were like the faintest breeze, but their weight pressed heavily on her heart. As the day of childbirth approached, Ava was consumed by both anticipation and fear. Mrs. Clara was by her side, preparing everything for the baby's arrival. The small house of the midwife was filled with the gentle scent of herbs, but inside Ava, a storm was raging. That night, as the wind howled through the trees outside, Ava began to feel the first pains. Mrs. Clara quickly took charge, guiding Ava to breathe steadily and stay calm. Each contraction was a cruel reminder of the decision she had made. When the baby's first cry rang out, it was like a needle piercing Ava's heart, both painful and miraculous. Mrs. Clara gently cradled the tiny girl, her eyes shining with admiration. "She's a beautiful little girl, Ava," she said, her voice soft, though a trace of solemnity remained. Ava looked at the baby, her eyes brimming with tears. The child had soft hair and smooth skin like morning dew. She opened her tiny eyes and gazed at Ava with innocence, as if seeking comfort from her mother. Ava reached out, gently touching the baby's cheek. The sensation made her heart tighten. How could she part with this child? How could she give it to a stranger, not knowing how it would be cared for? Yet the image of the shimmering bag of gold appeared in her mind once more, reminding her of the decision she had made. "Ava," Mrs. Clara called, her voice low and firm. "It's time." Ava hesitated, looking at the baby one last time. "My dear," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I hope you have a better life." Then, with trembling hands, she handed the baby to Mrs. Clara. As the baby was taken away, Ava felt as though a part of her soul had been torn apart. She watched Mrs. Clara's figure fade away, and in that moment, she felt emptier than ever before. Mrs. Clara turned back, holding a small cloth bag, inside which were gleaming gold coins. She placed it into Ava's hands, her eyes filled with understanding. "You've made your decision, Ava. Use this money to start a new life." Ava looked at the bag of gold, feeling heavier than relieved. She gripped the bag tightly in her hands, but inside she couldn't stop asking herself, was this the price she was willing to pay? Could this gold ever make up for the emptiness she was feeling? That night, Ava sat by the window, gazing at the silver moonlight reflected on the distant river. The bag of gold lay in her lap, but all she felt was a lingering ache, like a wound that would never heal. Though she had made a decision, Ava knew that her heart would forever carry the memory of the baby she had once held in her arms, even if only for a moment. After the first time she sold her firstborn daughter, Ava felt as though she had entered an entirely different world. The gleaming gold coins in her hands were like a sweet yet haunting invitation. At first, the pain and guilt tortured her every night, but as she saw the bag of gold growing fuller, Ava began to think that, perhaps, this was the way out of the poverty she had endured for so many years. As time went on, Ava didn't stop at just one. She became pregnant again, this time with another man in the village. Like Nathan before him, this man didn't want to take responsibility and quickly abandoned her when he heard the news that she was pregnant. Ava, no longer feeling the confusion or despair she had felt the first time, went to Mrs. Clara with the same request, to find someone willing to buy the child. This time, selling the child didn't cause Ava the same pain as before. When the baby was born and Mrs. Clara handed it over to the buyer, Ava received a larger bag of gold, along with precious jewellery. She looked at the wealth before her, feeling a strange joy. The riches she had never imagined herself possessing were now within her grasp. Each coin, each gleaming pearl, was a reminder that she was closer than ever to the life she had once dreamed of. A life free from worry about tomorrow. Ava continued on this path many more times. Each time she became pregnant, she sought out new men she knew wouldn't demand responsibility. And each time she handed over her child, in exchange for bags of gold and increasingly luxurious jewellery. Before long, Ava became wealthier than anyone in the village. She used her money to build a large house by the river. The house, with its pure white walls and bright red roof, stood out against the peaceful village landscape. Inside, the luxurious furnishings were adorned with items Ava had bought from distant towns: silk rugs, crystal chandeliers, and priceless oil paintings. Ava lived a life that many in the village could only dream of. She wore the finest dresses, adorned herself with the most dazzling jewellery, and always appeared in radiant splendour, causing everyone to admire her. The villagers often whispered among themselves, "What has Ava done to become so rich?" But no one dared to ask her directly. Ava's wealth couldn't cover the growing rumours that spread throughout the village. The fathers of the children she had sold began to seek her out. After living in doubt for some time, they finally couldn't hold back anymore and decided to confront Ava. One day, One of the men appeared at the door of her large house. His face was tense, his eyes filled with anger and suspicion. "Ava," he said, his voice firm like an accusation, "where is my child? The child you were carrying. Where is it?" Ava, accustomed to these questions, kept a calm expression and answered with a prepared lie. "I lost the baby. I miscarried." Her words were gentle, but she couldn't bring herself to look the man directly in the eyes. The man stared at her, his eyes seeming to penetrate every lie she spoke. But, with no evidence, he turned and walked away, leaving Ava standing there with her heart pounding in her chest. Though she had grown used to hiding the truth, Ava couldn't escape the fear that gripped her whenever she faced these men. However, the questions didn't stop there. One man, then two, and then more began to show up. All of them asked the same question. "Where is my child?" Ava always answered the same way, always with the same lie. "I miscarried. The baby is no more." But the more men came, the heavier Ava's heart became. The lies began to grow into a shadow, haunting her, growing larger with each passing day. The villagers began to gossip more. Doubtful glances, sarcastic whispers began to appear every time Ava walked by. Despite living in the large house, despite wearing the most extravagant dresses, Ava could not escape the feeling of being isolated. The rumours, the suspicion, and the scrutinising stares became a part of her life, like the jewellery she always wore. Ava had chosen this path in the hope of finding happiness and freedom. But now, amidst the luxurious wealth, she began to realise that everything had a price. And the price she had to pay might be far greater than she had ever imagined. The rumours about Ava spread throughout the village like wildfire. A villager who had overheard her story revealed the horrific secret to the whole town. Whispers quickly turned into shouts of rage, and soon the villagers' fury rose like an uncontrollable storm. One morning, as the first light of dawn broke, dozens of people from the village gathered at the gates of Ava's grand house. The shouts, the banging on the door, and the accusations echoed as if trying to tear down the walls she had built around her life. Men, women, and even children joined the angry mob, carrying sticks, stones, and other objects. "Give us back our child," one man shouted, his eyes full of fury. "If you don't return the child, we will burn your house down." A woman's voice shrieked, followed by a growl of agreement from the crowd. The harsh words rang out. "You are a woman without love or compassion. You only care about gold, wealth, and luxury, forgetting what it means to be a mother. You don't deserve any child, and you will suffer the wrath of the gods." Ava stood behind the closed door, her hands trembling. She knew everything had crumbled, that the secret she had tried to hide was now exposed. Her eyes were filled with panic and sorrow. The villagers' words were not just judgment. They felt like a curse, sinking her into a deep despair. With no way out, Ava turned back to Mrs. Clara's house, the one person who had witnessed everything she had done. Ava knelt down, tears streaming down her face, her voice choked. "Mrs. Clara, please help me. I want to make things right. I can't live like this anymore." Mrs. Clara looked at Ava with sad but stern eyes. "Ava, you've chosen this path long ago. I warned you, but you didn't listen. Now, you must face the consequences of your actions." Mrs. Clara's words were like a dagger that pierced Ava's heart. With nowhere to go, Ava wandered through the village, avoiding the disgusted stares and mocking words of the villagers. Everywhere she went, she was ridiculed, stoned, and even scolded mercilessly by the older women. The anger from those who once admired her now turned into open contempt. She had lost not only her wealth, but every relationship, every ounce of trust, and even her own self-respect. Ava felt like a shadow drifting through life without purpose, without escape. One night, as the moonlight reflected off the Mississippi River, Ava walked along the riverbank in despair. The sound of the flowing water whispered something she couldn't understand. She lowered her head, gazing at the water, her heart heavy. She wondered if she could ever escape this suffering, or if she would forever live in the darkness of the mistakes she had made. Suddenly, A strange blue light flickered from the middle of the river, shimmering and mysterious. Ava startled, her eyes wide with astonishment and a touch of fear. Before her, from beneath the water, a stunning figure emerged. It was a mermaid, her long emerald green hair flowing in the water, her deep eyes holding the vastness of the sky and the sea, and a mysterious smile playing on her lips. The mermaid's gentle yet commanding voice echoed, "Ava, what are you seeking?" Ava stepped back, but the mermaid's gaze held her like an invisible embrace. "Do not be afraid," she continued. "I know you regret your choices. I can help you redeem your sins, but you must pay a price." Ava felt a spark of hope rise within her. She knelt down, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Can you help me?" she asked, her voice pleading. "I am willing to do anything." The mermaid looked at Ava for a long moment, then smiled softly. "You will know the price when the time comes," she said, her eyes seeming to see right through Ava's soul. She then raised her hand and a pearl necklace appeared, glistening in the moonlight. "Wear this necklace," she said, her voice like a sweet melody, "and it will lead you to the children you have sold. But your task is not only that. You must find orphan children, abandoned children who need love. You must care for them, protect them. This is the path to redeem your mistakes." Ava took the necklace, her hands trembling. She looked at the mermaid, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I will do it," Ava said, her voice full of determination. "Whatever the cost, I am ready." The mermaid smiled, then slowly disappeared into the water. The strange blue light faded, leaving Ava standing alone by the river, the pearl necklace in her hands, and a small but bright spark of hope in her heart. Ava stood still by the river for a long while, feeling the coolness of the pearl necklace against her palm. For the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of light in the dark night of her life. Although she didn't know what challenges lay ahead, Ava understood that this was her chance to correct the mistakes she had made. With the pearl necklace around her neck, Ava began a new journey, one of redemption and self-discovery. Ava returned to the small village where her story had begun, the strange pearl necklace sparkling around her neck. On the familiar dusty road, she walked in silence, her heart heavy with regret and fear. Every step she took was a reminder of the mistakes she had made in the past. The necklace seemed to have a magical power, leading her to the homes of the people who had bought her children. The first house, a small wooden cottage with a faded thatched roof, appeared before her. Her hands shook as she knocked on the door. A middle-aged woman opened it, her eyes showing a brief surprise at seeing Ava. But when Ava asked about the child, the woman's face hardened. "You no longer have any rights to the child," she said, her voice firm. "The girl is our daughter now. She doesn't need you." Ava nodded, trying to swallow her tears. She turned and walked away, but her heart felt like it was being crushed. This was only the first house. The second, third, and many other homes all gave the same answer. The children she had abandoned were now grown up in their new families. They had found love and comfort in places that Ava could never provide. Though her heart was shattered, Ava understood that her presence now meant nothing. All she could do was pray that they would live happy lives. When she returned to the Mississippi River, the place that had witnessed both her joy and sorrow, she saw the mermaid waiting for her. The mermaid's emerald green hair shimmered in the moonlight, and her deep eyes seemed to read Ava's soul. "You have done well," the mermaid said, a mysterious smile on her lips. Ava shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "But I couldn't bring my children back. They don't need me anymore. I feel so useless and guilty." The mermaid tilted her head slightly, her voice gentle but full of authority. "You cannot fix everything, but you can learn to accept. Forgiveness must begin with yourself." Ava looked up at the mermaid, her eyes full of tears but gleaming with a glimmer of hope. "But how can I forgive myself when I've hurt so many people?" The mermaid smiled. "You cannot change the past, but you can create a better future. Go and help the orphaned children, the abandoned children who need a mother's love. Only you can heal your own heart. From that day on, Ava began her new journey. She sold all her possessions, from the grand house by the river to the expensive jewelry she had once been so proud of. With the money, she built a home for orphaned children in the village. She was no longer a woman of luxury, but a mother with a heart full of love. She spent her days caring for the children with no place to call home, telling them stories of love and forgiveness. Each child she embraced was a reminder of the mistakes of her past and the opportunity to make amends. With each child's laugh, Ava's heart became a little lighter, as though the wounds inside her were slowly healing. But Ava could not escape the loneliness. Even though she had redeemed herself deep down, she knew that her children would always remain an irreplaceable part of her heart. She often sat by the river, gazing at the pearl necklace the mermaid had given her, praying that one day her children would forgive her. Ava's story soon became a valuable lesson that the parents in the village passed down to their children. They whispered by the fire, "True wealth is not in gold or silver, but in love and family. Never lose what matters most for fleeting temptations." One night, as Ava sat by the river, the moonlight reflecting on the water, the pearl necklace around her neck suddenly emitted a strange glow. For the first time in years, Ava heard a voice calling from the river. The gentle yet powerful voice echoed, "Ava, your journey is not over. Step into the river, and the truth will be revealed." Ava stood, her heart racing. She walked slowly toward the water. Would the mermaid return? Would a new secret be revealed? Or was this the beginning of another journey, full of challenges but also filled with hope? What do you think of Ava's journey? Will she find complete forgiveness? And what is the mermaid's intention when calling her into the river? Please leave your thoughts in the comments and share the lesson you've learned from this story. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and share this meaningful story with your friends and family in the United States. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next part of this mysterious and moving tale. Thank you for following African Tales.